This is not the union of our dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, at first let me stress the European Union is our natural political environment. But let us be clear about one thing. This is not the union of our dreams. We joined the European Union, which was supposed to provide us with economic opportunities, and it did. It also gave us a chance to unleash our entrepreneurial potential. We joined the EU to benefit from the Schengen area, and we are taking advantage of it. However, the goal was not for the European Union to dictate the terms of our political system, our diet, or our upbringing of our children. Therefore, we advocate for the rejection of the project of EU centralization. There is no European demos. Its existence cannot be decreed or codified, and without a demos, there is no democracy. In the Polish vision of the EU, the only sovereigns remain nation-states, demos understood as communities of citizens of individual EU member states. Modern nations are not tribes torn by atavistic passions for domination over others, as the EU mainstream tries to portray them, but nations with millennia-old traditions, culture, and interests. Attempting to eliminate them, as European centralists would have it, will only lead to conflict and misfortune. Considering the existence of nations and their sovereign states as an evil that must be overcome is another form of a utopian program. As such, having those in mind, in order to stop and consequently reverse this negative trajectory of the process of EU centralization, Poland proposes the following actions. First, maintaining the principles of unanimity in those areas of EU decision-making where it currently applies. Second, maintaining the one state, one commissioner principle in the formation of the European Commission, whereby each EU country, even the smallest, must have its own designated commissioner in the EU's highest administrative body, and at the same time prohibiting the appointment to the highest EU positions of persons without the recommendation of their home country's government. Third, the restoration of the presidency to the head of the executive branch of government of the member state holding the EU presidency at the moment, which means the return to the pre-Lisbon presidency's nature. As such, Poland also proposes the abolition of the position of President of the European Council. The President of the Council has to be, as before, the President, Prime Minister, or Chancellor of his or her country. That is a politician with a democratic mandate and political base rather than a bureaucrat official dependent on the support of the EU's greatest powers. While the rotation of this position gave each member state a periodic dominant influence on the functioning of the European Council, the current system ensures the permanent dominance of the EU's central powers and marginalizes the others. The same applies to the EU Council for Foreign Policy, which is headed by an official dependent on the great powers, and not by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the country holding the presidency, who has a democratic mandate. Fourth, basing the voting system in the EU Council in such a way as to eliminate the excessive advantage of large EU countries, to maintain the support of smaller nations for the process of European integration. These nations must have a real influence on decisions. Fifth, basing the functioning of the EU on pragmatic principles, without ideological pressures, limiting the competences of EU institutions to selected non-ideological areas or challenges, such as economic development or demographic collapse, thereby reducing the areas of competence of European institutions to those where the chances of being effective are real substantial. This means abandoning excessive ambitions to regulate the entire lives or member states and its citizens, and the intention of shaping all aspects of politics, sometimes by bypassing or violating the will of the citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, this is in a nutshell my vision of which direction the EU should be headed at. One may wonder now, is this possible? There should be no illusion about the chances of these ideas being adopted by the EU. However, submitting such comprehensive programs for improving our union is the right of every member state. Let me be crystal clear. I am a supporter of Poland in the European Union, but I believe that issues such as political and justice systems or security are reserved exclusively for the Polish constitution, the Polish president, and the Polish government, just as they should be for every member state. If any of you find this vision acceptable, and frankly speaking, close to your political heart, I am more than willing to continue the conversation. As of now, let it serve as food for thought. Thank you very much for your attention.